Hi management students, Dr. Bowen here. Welcome to another very brief lecture for our management class, J533. Today we're discussing Chapter 6, How Public Relations Contributes to Organizational Effectiveness. First, we need to define organizational effectiveness, or how we know that an organization is effective or doing what it's supposed to be doing. The most popular approach is probably the goal attainment perspective. Is the organization accomplishing the goals that it sets routinely? Is it able to achieve these goals? The goal attainment perspective is very practically oriented and allows us to focus on competitive advantage and strategy, at least in the short term. The next perspective is the strategic constituencies perspective, in which you're trying to lower resistance of certain audiences to what the organization is doing so that certain publics have less resistance to you. There is no new regulation, no boycotts, no advocacy groups that are disturbing your operations. This is a pretty limited perspective, although it does lend a little bit of focus to having satisfactory relationship outcomes, so we'll talk about that a little more. And then the final perspective is the systems theory perspective. We'll return to systems theory again in Chapter 11. If you want to look ahead to Figure 11.1, that'll give you a lot deeper understanding of systems theory already, and it'll be helpful for you on the midterm exam. But essentially, systems theory says that the organization is a system to varying degrees of openness, that we use communication as an input for that system, an input of information as a resource, as a throughput, so that information research is something we use in strategy, we change it to our strategy, and then an output, sending that strategy into the environment. And of course, we have a feedback loop with systems theory perspective. The next thing to talk about is the stakeholder management perspective in this chapter. Briefly, it consists of 6 steps, and I'd like you to read and be familiar with those steps. The first is to identify your stakeholders. This is very important anytime you're addressing an issue or starting a public relations initiative, because you don't want to overlook certain stakeholders if they are smaller, if they are against the organization, if they're competitors, etc. You still need to know that they're there. The next step is to describe the stakes of the situation. What are the potential stakes at play? How could they change things for the organization? And then, of course, what is the significance of each stakeholder group and their stake in the issue? Very important. What opportunities do you see? That's a very important thing that we need to think about in terms of changing your management strategy for the future, such as trying to leverage space in a new market and so on. And then, of course, what are your responsibilities to stakeholders? What are the ethics at play? And what relationship enhancing strategies may you use? And then finally, the last part of this chapter talks about relationship management theory, or as we know it in the literature, OPR, Organization Public Relationships. If you take a look at Figure 6.2, you'll get a great nutshell overview of that theory. I believe that it's a very powerful theory that looks at management behavior in terms of consistency, creating trust, credibility, meeting expectations, and being a stable organization are the variables that go into that. And then, of course, the relationship building factors such as mutual control, getting feedbacks from your stakeholders and publics so that you understand how they view certain issues. You can incorporate some of their ideas so that they are satisfied with the outcomes that the organization is using. And then finally, allowing some commitment from your stakeholders and publics to a longer term relationship with the organization. Relationship management theory is very powerful in that it says if you have consistency in ethical behavior, you can build trust and therefore leverage better long-term relationships for the organization that can build stability in turbulent environments. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed reading Chapter 6, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.